It's time for the Money Puzzle Podcast. With good conversations and realistic solutions to the money puzzles we all face every day. I'm your host, financial advisor, chartered financial consultant, and president of Edgen Insurance and Financial, Robert Edgen. Now let's get this show started. Hi there, hello, and welcome to the Money Puzzle Podcast. I am Robert Edgen. I'll be your guide for the ride for the next few minutes. Each week, we look at a different piece of the money puzzle and practical ways to solve it so you can have the financial confidence you deserve and the future that you dream of. We are finishing up a month-long look at long-term care today, and back to join me in the studio is my business buddy, my pal, my amigo from another placebo. It's Brian Johnson. Thanks for joining me in the studio again today.
You always come up with the funniest things. I think that's the second time I laugh, though.
You laugh every time.
I do.
It doesn't matter what I say. You're like the best person to have around because I can tell you the same thing every week and you laugh every time.
I do.
I think it's fantastic. So, all right. So we've been spending a month looking at long-term care. What is it? How it works? How do you pay for it? How much does it cost? Last week we started talking about how to pay for it, right?
We did. Yes, we did.
We went over all of the self-pay options.
We went self-pay. Yeah, about 3 self-pay options, I think, is what we covered.
Writing checks. Reverse mortgages.
Life settlements.
Life settlements, right?
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about the non-self-pay options. So we're going to talk about government programs, traditional long-term care insurance, and some of the new hybrid long-term care.
Oh, yeah, my favorites.
So we're going to talk about all those. I'm excited to get into those conversations, but before we do, I do a lot of reading and research, and I come across different news articles that catch my eye, so I thought we'd take a minute to look at some news. This week's article comes from Science Daily, and the headline reads, "Will people eat relish made from waste ingredients? Study finds they may even prefer it."
No!
Yes. So a new study found strong potential for consumer acceptance of a new category of foods. So this is a whole new category created from discarded food and ingredients.
Oh, discarded food. I was thinking like roadkill.
Roadkill. Well, I mean, you never know. So it says, the big question has been this: will consumers accept products made from ingredients that were destined for the garbage? Would a person actually eat and pay for a granola bar from spent brewing grains or a relish made from vegetables unfit for the supermarket?
Well, I do know of a certain population, specifically the growth rate of the homeless in Denver, that would probably enjoy it.
Well, not just them. Here's the truth.
Okay.
Most people enjoyed it. So they did a study and they tested out relish that was made from food headed to the garbage.
What was the salmonella content?
They didn't say.
They didn't?
They did not say. It was outdated food, lettuce that had expired.
Mayonnaise that's been sitting in the sun.
That's whatever it might be. The truth is, people felt like it was kind of like recycling.
Okay.
So instead of this bad stigma of I'm eating garbage food, it was more along the lines of I'm helping save the planet, I'm doing my part to recycle. And you know what they said? The taste was even better than normal relish.
The taste was even better than normal relish.
Now, from somebody who would rather poke my eye out than eat relish, I don't really care what it tastes like.
Pickles are great.
Whatever, man.
Oh.
Pickles are the nastiest. My wife knows if she's eating pickles, we're not kissing. At least not for a while, man. Pickles are...
and there's only 2 of us in my family that actually eat pickles.
All right, if you want to read the rest of that article, it is the link is in the show notes down below this episode, so make sure you check that out. But for now, let's get into the hot topic of the day. All right, so wrapping up how you pay for long-term care. Today we're going to talk about Medicaid. We're going to talk about different insurance options where you can get some assistance. So Medicaid is what you use when you run out of money.
That's right.
Right? Medicaid, just so we know, as a program is intended for people who do not have the financial means to pay for their own care.
Right.
Right? Medicaid helps not just elderly who need long-term care. It's for all of the population who are below the poverty line and can't afford their care.
That's correct.
Right? So, but there are some qualifications and some standards that have to be met before you can use Medicaid. So, Brian, I thought we would go through a few myths versus facts with Medicaid.
Right. So let's guess.
So let's do some guesses. First off, and you probably, maybe you've heard this before, not you specifically, but people who are listening. The first, is this a myth or a fact? The question is, hey, you must be broke in order to qualify for Medicaid. A lot of people believe that. Is that a myth or a fact?
It's a myth.
It is a myth. You do not have to be broke.
Not dead broke.
You have to be almost broke.
Dead
That's
broke.
right. You have to be almost broke. The Medicaid rules, and there's a lot of Medicaid rules. We don't have time to go through all of them. So we're going to go through kind of some of the big ones. But one of the big Medicaid rules is if you can pay for your own care, you have to pay for your own care until you no longer can. Well, what do they say? What's that limit when you no longer can?
$2,000 left.
When you have $2,000 left of assets,
one of Rob's paychecks,
they say you can no longer pay for your own, therefore will help you pay for care. Now, if you've got a spouse, there's some grace here. If you've got a spouse who does not need Medicaid assistance, then they can actually keep a little bit more. They can keep $126,000 of assets, but that is of yours and theirs combined.
Combined. So, just think most people today, there's a heck of a lot more than $126,000 sitting in a house.
Well, not only that, if it's, hey, I've got my retirement fund of $500,000 and my wife's got her retirement fund of $500,000. You've got to spend all of it down to $126,000.
Yep.
So it's the rules. It is what it is. How about this myth here? You cannot make any money. You cannot get a paycheck or an income or any earnings and qualify for Social Security. Myth or fact?
Myth.
That's right. You are allowed to make money each month. Brian, how much money are you allowed to make?
$2,300 a month.
Absolutely. And how much then do they require you to contribute to your own care?
$2,210.
$2,220.
Okay, I was $10.
You were $10 off. You're allowed to keep $80 a month for your personal care needs.
That would meet our coffee budget.
So barely. I don't know if it would meet my coffee budget. We drink a lot of coffee. $80 a month you're allowed to keep for your own personal care, right? The rest, so if you get a pension, if you get Social Security, if you get whatever it is, that monthly income has to go towards your care except for that $80. However, again, there's some grace if you have a spouse, right? A non-Medicaid assistance needing spouse, they are allowed to actually keep $2,030 per month from yours and their money.
Right.
So if they're getting Social Security, let's say of $1,000 a month, then they could keep another $1,030 a month of your earnings and income in order to get to that $2,030 limit. That's what Medicaid says they can use for their own living lifestyle care and needs, right? How about this? Here's a myth, or maybe a fact. You can and should give your assets away to your kids in order to qualify for care.
Myth.
That's right. There is what's called a look-back period when it comes to getting Medicaid assistance. Brian, how long is the look-back period?
It's 5 years. There has been talk that it could be increased to 7.
But for now it's 5.
For now it's 5.
So basically what happens is Medicaid looks back to, and they want to know, over the last 5 years before getting care, were you giving away your money? Were you giving away your car or your house, or were you just selling things for below market value?
Right. That's always key too, below market value. A lot of people think they can sell things to family members and charge them next to nothing for it. That is an absolute no-no.
Well, they can do it.
No, yeah, but there's still a cost to it.
There is still a cost. So what happens if you do give away money, you give away assets, you sell your house to your kid for $400, right? Whatever it might be, then Medicaid assesses a penalty. Now, it's not a penalty in the sense where you get a fine or you have to write them a check, or they don't go back to your kid and say, give us the rest of the money, or give us the money that your mom gave you, right? Instead, what they do is the penalty is a delay in your qualifying for Medicaid.
So in essence, they're getting it back from you.
So absolutely. So, it's based on how much money you gave away.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be penalized a certain amount of time before they will step in and kick in that money.
That's right.
Now, there's a lot of talk we have with clients, regarding gifting. Because gifting is a good strategy when it comes to estate planning.
Absolutely can be, yes.
So I got a little story for you. You got time for a story?
We have time for a story.
All right. So I was meeting with some clients not that long ago, and we were actually talking about long-term care, and they had a whole plan, and they'd already been doing it. Hey, we're giving away $15,000 a year, which is legal, and IRS, it allows it, to our kids and our grandkids. That way, if we do need care, we're following the legal gifting limits, but we're still giving our kids as much money as we can and as much money as possible before we have to spend it on care, so that the nursing homes or the government gets it.
Right. And that's $15,000 per person.
That's right.
Right.
So for gifting rules, you can give away $15,000 per person per year to anybody you want.
Yeah.
Right. But gifting rules do not equal Medicaid rules.
They do not.
No. So even if you're following the IRS rules of gifting, Medicaid says you could have and should have spent that money on your own care.
That's right.
If you did not, you're going to get penalized, which is going to be a delay in care.
That's right.
Right?
Well, a delay in paying for care.
A delay
not
in
necessarily
paying.
delay.
Well, that's right. You still have to have care.
You have to stay home without anybody until the time limit's up. Right.
No. You still you got to figure out how to pay for it on your own.
You do.
Right? Until you get past that delay, which is the penalty. So, all right. So following the IRS gifting rules does not mean you are following the Medicaid gifting rules, because there is no such thing as Medicaid gifting rules.
There are not.
Right.
No. They, and when you think about it, it does make sense.
Sure.
To a large extent, is if you have assets, why should you and I be responsible?
You and I,
other
meaning
the
taxpayers, right,
to be responsible for covering your care because you gave all your money to your kids last month.
Right. It would be nice, from a planning perspective, to say, hey, I need care next month. I'm going to give all my money to my kids this month. It doesn't work.
No.
So it does not work.
Nor should it.
So, all right. We could literally spend hours talking about Medicaid, but we don't have hours.
We don't.
So we're going to move on to the other two ways that you can pay for long-term care costs, which is different kinds of insurance.
Yeah.
So let's start off with traditional long-term care, which has been around a very long time.
A long time,
Yes.
not a very long time.
It's all in your perspective.
30 years isn't that long.
I think 5 years is a long time. I don't even remember what I did 5 hours ago.
I know that's the problem.
So, all right. So it's been around, for
It's
long
a while.
enough.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah.
Now, long-term care, when it started, was a very simple idea. You pay insurance premiums for a certain number of years, and then if you need care, then they kick in a daily limit or amount towards care.
That's right. Daily or monthly. The older ones, my mother-in-law, if you remember back a few episodes ago with my wife, her policy had a monthly limit on it.
Versus a daily. That's
Versus a
older.
daily.
And then they switched over to a daily.
They did.
So what you're typically doing with long-term care is maybe you're paying you're paying maybe $200 a month or $400 a month or $500 a month, whatever it is, based on what you choose.
Right.
So you're writing, it's a big check, but it's the smaller of the two checks, to the insurance company. Then if you need long-term care, then they're going to kick in $200 per day towards your care, if that's the limit.
If that's the limit.
If that's the limit that you chose. There are variations on it where you could pool resources between spouses and different things, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Yes.
Now, medically speaking, if you're paying these insurance premiums, right, maybe you're paying them for 10, 15, 20 years, at some point in time you need to file a claim. Mm-hmm. Well, qualifying for care works the same way when it comes to Medicaid, which actually I'm glad we're talking about it now because we didn't talk about it with Medicaid. If you cannot do 2 of your 6 activities of daily living, then you can file a claim. Or if you've got a cognitive impairment.
Yeah, Alzheimer's, dementia.
That's right. You can file a claim. That's also how you qualify for Medicaid care.
Yep.
Right? If you cannot do 2 of your 6 activities of daily living. Activities of daily living.
Toileting, transferring, eating,
bathing. Yep. Getting yourself in and out of things.
Yep.
Mobile, moving and walking around, and then dressing yourself. Right. So if you can't do 2 of those 6, then they say, hey, you need some assistance. You can file a claim and get some care. Now, long-term care, traditional long-term care insurance policies also have a waiting period.
Well, like a deductible.
Yeah. 30, 60, 90 days. Yeah. So it's something you choose, but you are saying, hey, for the first 30, 60, 90 days, whatever you choose, I'm going to pay for care myself.
I'm going to take care of it.
Right. And then after that, you can file a claim, and then they're going to, kick in the rest. Now, traditional long-term care has kind of fallen out of favor over the last couple of decades. So let's talk about a couple of statistics about traditional long-term care.
Yeah, let's do it.
First, in the year 2000, there were 125 standalone in long-term care insurance policies that you could buy from insurance companies.
Wow, that is a big number.
125 different companies were selling standalone policies in the year 2000. Right. Brian, in the year 2014, 14 years later, 2015, how many companies were selling long-term care policies? 14 out of 125.
Yep. There were a lot of changes. So one of the big things that took place is lapse ratios. Mm-hmm. Companies kind of factored in that people would cancel their policies, and it's not happening.
Yeah. So when insurance companies build out and price their insurance policies, one of the things that they factor into the pricing is what's called a lapse ratio. Yep. They want to know how many people will pay for coverage for a certain amount of time and then cancel it without ever filing a claim, right? And they might have expectations of 25% of people will pay for 5 years and then just get tired of paying, so they can collect all of those premiums, never pay out any money, and that allows them to offer lower prices to everyone.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, the actual lapse ratio is less than, I think it's low single digits.
Well, it ranges between 3 and 11%.
It's very small.
So, but the lapse rates of long-term care policies are some of the lowest of all insurance policies. People just keep paying and paying and paying and waiting for care. Yep. So all of those lapses that the insurance companies thought we're just going to get free money.
Right. It's because of all the expectations that people are going to need care. And there's people that don't want to be a burden on their kids. And so they keep paying those premiums.
That's right. So it's led to more claims. Now, we'll get to claims here in just a minute, but a kind of a follow-up question. There were 125 companies in the year 2000 selling them, 14 in the year 2015. Of those 14, how many took significant price increases on their policies?
100%.
100%.
These are one of those policies that continue to go up yearly.
I have a pretty interesting article. Here it is. Genworth raises, this is from Investment News. I'll have the link in the show notes. Genworth raises long-term care insurance costs an average of 58%. So it says Genworth recently received approval from state regulators to raise costs by 58%, affecting tens of millions of dollars worth of insurance premiums. I'm going to read a little more of this article.
Yeah, please.
Other insurers are also pursuing increase to offset adverse trends in the long-term care industry. Prudential, Financial, Unum, CNO Financial, all are having setbacks with their long-term care business. How about this one? Massachusetts Mutual just requested a 77% increase, which will affect 54,000 policyholders.
That's huge.
So it's not just that they are saying, hey, we're going to file for rate increases on new policies. This is on everyone. This is on people who already have coverage.
It's not like, we always want to think about insurance companies as being gouging and bad and all that other stuff. The fact of the matter is, like we talked about a week ago, is the cost of long-term care is increasing by about 6% every single year. And so these increases are having to take place. The cost is just going through the roof.
The costs are going up. Yep. And the amount of people who need the care is going up. Right. We're all living longer, medical advances.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We're living longer, but one thing we always need to keep in mind, if we want insurance companies to be there to be able to pay claims, we have to deal with these rate increases.
All right. So a follow-up article to that Genworth one, raising rates along with the other insurance providers. Comes from Investment News, and it says, options for dealing with rising long-term care insurance premiums. Buffeted by huge rate hikes, most policyholders are choosing to trim their coverage. So maybe instead of $250 per day, which would be a daily, maybe they go to $200 or $175.
Right. Or changing the elimination period, your deductible, you can increase the time period.
You go from 30 days to 90 days.
That's right.
So whatever has to be done, the other option is you just got to suck it up and pay the extra, but maybe you can't. So if you don't trim, after that, what is it? You lose your insurance.
You lose your coverage.
So and it's not just insurance companies that are raising rates. Last August, the federal government, this is from NerdWallet, by the way, I'll also have this in the show notes. The federal government announced in August that rates on most of the long-term care insurance policies for federal employees and retirees would increase by an average of 83%.
That's huge.
That's freaking humongous.
Oh man, you're talking almost doubling your price. I don't care who you are. When you get 83% increase, it's a double.
So if you were paying $300 a month, you're now paying $600 a month.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
If you were paying $400, you're up at $800. So it's not just, like we said, it's not just these money-hungry insurance companies that are raising rates to get more premiums. They are having to raise rates in order to cover claims. So I wanted to talk to you about a couple of different claims statistics real quick. Just to show you how serious this issue is. In 2000, insurance companies had, for long-term care policies, $1.87 billion worth of claims filed in the year 2000. So almost $2 billion, but $1.87 billion. 17 years later, 2017, that number had climbed up to $9.2 billion.
Oh, wow.
So it had gone up 5 times being spent on claims. So what are the insurance companies' options, right? If they don't raise rates,
they go out of business.
They go out of business.
Yeah.
Or they quit selling long-term care.
And
they quit providing coverage.
One of the biggest writers of long-term care stopped selling policies a few years ago.
Yeah. So it's been a real problem, and it's not just that insurance companies are trying to get extra money. It's that they were not prepared for how much long-term care was going to cost, how many people were going to need it, and how many people were going to keep their policies.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Now, a couple of considerations for traditional long-term care insurance. First off, you have to qualify. You do. You can't just say, "Hey, I want long-term care insurance."
Yeah, and it's changing. The qualifications is becoming more and more difficult. You have to be close to perfect health these days to qualify.
Well, the best advice is to apply young and apply when you're healthy. The statistics are, if you're for 50 to 59-year-olds, about 14% of people do not qualify for care. They're denied an insurance policy. But that number climbs every single year until you reach age 70, and then it's about 45% of people who are being turned down for coverage. So close to half are being denied coverage by the age of 70. So if you want to go this route, then you want to apply early and you want to apply healthy.
Yes, yes, and just be aware that the insurance companies are raising rates on these pretty much every single year.
They are. There's a lot of rate increases. They're trying to do some filings to have less rate increases, but the truth is they're struggling. Now, one other thing to keep in mind about traditional long-term care policies is they are typically known as a use it or lose it system. Right. It's kind of like your home insurance. Right. You pay insurance to protect your home. If you have a problem like a home fire or a tornado, you file a claim, they pay money. But what happens if you never have a problem?
You don't ever get the money back.
They keep your money.
Yeah. Well, it's not really your money because you're paying for this huge amount of coverage. Right?
That's true. What you're doing is you are trading money to take that risk off.
You're passing the risk off to the insurance company.
That's right. So you're right. It's not your money. You are purchasing a risk transfer. Yep. You are writing them small checks, which I know $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 a month might not seem small, but it's better than $100,000 a year. Big checks for long-term care.
Oh yeah, when you think about that, if you fully insured yourself in long-term care at $100,000 a year and you're paying $500 a year for it, it's pretty cheap.
even if you're paying $5,000
I meant $500 a month is what I meant to say.
$6,000 a year, yeah.
Yeah, it's cheap.
That's right. So because of this use it or lose it system, because rate increases keep happening, because benefits are being cut, all these things, long-term care, the traditional kind's fallen out of favor lately. In the year 2000, or from the year 2000 to 2017, traditional long-term care sales went down by 90%.
Yeah, well, think about what people are doing by not purchasing long-term care these days, or doing. We'll talk about the other means in a minute, but when you think about that, they're transferring a lot of risk off. They're still transferring it either to their own pocket and to their families.
So they are.
Yeah.
So, or that gets us to our last way that we're going to talk about for paying long-term care. The newer hybrid long-term care plans or asset-based plans have been coming into favor.
Yep.
They've gone from the year 2000, there was about 70,000 sales, to the year 2017, there were about 350,000 sales. So they're kind of seeing that, that reverse of the traditional.
They are, and we can't get into all of them here. It'd take too much time. I mean, we could be sitting here for hours and hours talking about these things. But yes, that's true. People are choosing to purchase a different type of policy because not all of them are use it or lose it.
That's correct. So some of the few differences between the traditional long-term care and the newer or hybrid long-term care, and some of the similarities. Let's run through a few real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. First, you still have to qualify for a policy.
You do.
You still have to get checked out. They're going to want to know your health. They're going to want to know your risks, all of those sorts of things. Yeah. So not everybody can get one.
Yeah, they want to know your financial means as well.
So that's right.
Part of it.
Pricing is pretty similar.
Yeah.
Between traditional long-term care and the newer hybrid long-term care. So you're not choosing one over the other because one of them is, 50% less than the other. They're similar.
Yeah.
Right. How you qualify for or to file a claim is the same.
It is.
If you can't do 2 of your 6 activities of daily living.
Right.
Cognitive impairment.
Yep.
But you can qualify for care with the newer stuff in some other ways as well.
Sure.
They have some extra triggers, is what they're called. It might be a permanent disability or a stroke or cancer.
Right.
Different things that affect your mortality rate.
Sure.
So those are some of the similarities and differences. Also, the newer hybrid kinds are attached. They're not their own standalone policies anymore.
No.
They're a rider on either a life insurance plan or an annuity.
Yeah, annuities have some of them too. That's right. And then, so you can do a lot of neat things with annuities with 401ks that you could actually help buy long-term care with wrapping your 401k with an annuity.
So you could do that. That's right. Or if it's attached to your life insurance and you screw up and just die without needing care, then that money gets passed on to your family as a death benefit.
Yeah.
So instead of being a use it or lose it system, a lot of the newer kinds are called an either or.
That's right.
Because what happens is you still got to qualify, you still got to pay the premiums, you still have this new amount, but if you don't use it for long-term care, you can use it as a death benefit.
Sure.
And with a lot of them, if you don't use it for long-term care or a death benefit, what's your third option? Get your money back.
Get your money back. I just went totally blank. I don't know why that is. I just went like, I have no idea what I'm thinking.
I saw you looking in my eyes.
I was like, dude.
Minute. That's right. You looked lovingly into my eyes. It happens from time. Don't worry. I have that effect on lots of people.
You do.
So a lot of long-term care hybrid plans have a third option of getting your money back if you need it for things like, living.
Right.
Paying your bills, doing all of those kinds of things. The other big difference is how the payout is. Most of the time with the hybrid plans, you're not buying a dollar limit, you're buying a lump sum.
You're buying a lump sum payout. That's correct.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily always have to go directly to the nursing home.
No, it typically does not.
It does not. So if your wife wanted to take care of you, you can use that money and take, $100,000 or whatever the case may be, and use it to take care of regular living expenses, help pay for that in-home nurse, the maybe adult daycare, that type of stuff.
That's right. If you're now wheelchair bound, maybe you need to use some of that money to, change, remodel your house.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So it's more of a lump sum type program.
Yeah, and it can come out and you can take it in percentages at times for certain products as well. So you don't have to take the full amount. You can take a partial amount.
Right.
and do that sort of thing. So instead of getting, a nursing home $200 a day, you could have $100,000 in your pocket to deal with as you really need.
Right. Now, you do need to be smart, because if you take that $100,000 and, buy an RV or something, you're not going to run out of money for care.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it gives you more flexibility. Right? It gives you some options. So,
yes.
All right. So that's some of the differences between traditional long-term care and the new hybrid long-term care. We could, again, same thing. We could talk about those things for hours.
Yeah,
but
we could.
Here is really the bottom line when it comes to long-term care. If you have a plan before you need it, right, you're going to have a much better chance of having it work the way you want it to work.
Yeah, and I would say for sure that he's absolutely correct. You need to really talk to an advisor soon.
So, absolutely. The younger, the better. And the truth is, all financial plans should look at long-term care. Maybe your chosen option is just to write checks and pay for it yourself. Maybe it's to, buy half through an insurance policy. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
No, absolutely not.
You can combine these ways. The goal is to use the resources and put them together and build that out so it works the best for you.
That's correct.
So,
yep.
All right. I think that's what we got for long-term care. Plus, we're getting long, so we need to wrap it up. So,
okay.
All right. It's been a great month talking about long-term care. If you have not reviewed your own plan, or if you've not come up with, hey, what are we going to do? What are the resources we have? Get together with us or another advisor and have a coverage analysis and a long-term care review discussion.
That's right.
Right? Do that. Give us a call. We'd be happy to do that for you. Also, if you've not given us a rating or liked us on your chosen podcast app, please do. We would really appreciate that. Share us with your friends. Leave us a comment. If you've got questions about your own financial puzzle, your own money puzzle, email us those questions at yourmoneypuzzle.com. Otherwise, we'll be back next week to get a little bit more general, have a little bit more fun.
He will be back next week. I'm going backpacking.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to have a great time.
Yes.
So, all right. I'll be back next week. Until then, make it a great week. Be safe. Go out and do something to improve your money puzzle. You'll be glad you did, and I'll see you next week.
Have a great weekend.
Registered representative of and securities offered through Securities Management and Research, Inc., SM&R. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through BFC Planning, Inc. Edge and Insurance and Financial Services, Johnson Financial Services, SM&R, American National Family of Companies, and BFC Planning are independent entities. There are risks involved with investing which may include market fluctuation and possible loss of principal value. Particular investments may not be suitable for certain situations. Carefully consider the risks and possible consequences involved prior to making an investment decision. Our firm does not provide legal or tax advice. Be sure to consult with your own legal and tax advisors before taking any action that may have tax implications.